Let's get right into this explainer and meticulously investigate exactly why the heavily hyped U.S. men's national team suffered a crushing 4-1 defeat to Belgium. The expectations going in were sky high, right? But under the bright lights in Seattle, the team was completely humbled. So what went wrong? Why did a team that looked so incredibly promising just unravel? But we're going to break it all down.
Here is the blueprint for our autopsy today. We'll examine the burden of hype, Belgium's tactical checkmate, the team crumbling mentally, the snowball of errors, and finally, the Pochettino verdict. Section 1. The burden of hype, an expectation versus reality. Okay, there is a massive contrast between what we were told and what we actually witnessed. We continuously heard pundits and the public claim this team could go all the way, that they were finally ready to sit at the table with the world's absolute elite. But we've got to contrast that golden generation hype with the cold, hard reality of what occurred on the pitch. Another round of 16 exit and a painful 4-1 humbling by a Belgian team that flat out exposed them. Think about this for a second. 1930. That's the last year the U.S. actually beat Belgium. Heading into this matchup, there was this unmistakable sense of public arrogance, kind of talking down this Belgian team as if they were past their prime. But history was heavily against the U.S. And as Romelu Lukaku proved when he scored that final goal, all that outside noise, it literally just fueled Belgium to prove everyone wrong. Let's look at where that hype really exploded. A past quote from Jurgen Klinsmann brilliantly illustrates this. He said that a flawless 60 minutes against Paraguay gave everyone the feeling they were ready to compete with the world's best. That first game set an almost impossible bar. We saw one of the best halves of soccer in U.S. history, causing everyone to mistakenly assume this team's growth would just be perfectly linear. It created a totally false sense of security. Section 2. Belgium's tactical checkmate and outsmarting Pochettino. Belgium's manager, Rudy Garcia, executed a flawless game plan. They took the legs right out from under the U.S. They did this by heavily attacking the wide areas, starving the center of the midfield, and denying players like Weston McKennie and Malik Tillman any space to operate. Plus, when the U.S. tried to utilize their famous high press, Belgium didn't panic at all. They played calmly out of the back, stringing together precise combinations that forced the U.S. into a really exhausted defensive posture for almost the entire first half. The crucial tactical reality here was the U.S. being pinned in. By forcing the U.S. wingbacks, specifically Anthony Robinson, to stay deep, Belgium totally suffocated the American attack. Robinson just couldn't drive forward. This created a huge domino effect, leaving key attacking players like Christian Pulisic entirely isolated. He barely even touched the ball early on. Meanwhile, Tyler Adams was forced to cover so much open ground in the midfield that you could literally see him gassed by halftime. Tactically, it was a complete checkmate. Section 3. Crumbling mentally and the psychological fragility. The U.S. might have been physically capable of hanging with Belgium, but mentally, totally different story. The absolute moment Belgium struck first, which ironically is historically when the U.S. usually strikes, it knocked the wind out of the Americans. They went straight into a shell. It revealed that while they definitely had the athleticism, they were completely unprepared mentally to handle the intense adversity of a World Cup knockout match. It forces us to ask a really critical question. Did they mistake physical readiness for mental toughness? And why did even the most veteran leaders on this squad shrink emotionally under the brightest lights? You can have all the talent in the world, guys, but if your psyche shatters the moment you go down a goal, you simply cannot compete with the elite. Section 4. Snowball of errors. An individual collapses. That psychological fragility meant mistakes compounded rapidly. Big players had terrible performances at the worst possible moments. First, Serginho Dest constantly lost the ball, leading to the opening goals and was so ineffective he actually got yanked at halftime. Second, 39-year-old veteran Tim Ream got completely overpowered and posterized by Charles de Ketelaere. And climaxing the whole disaster was goalkeeper Matt Fries, who got his pocket picked playing out of the back, leading straight to Belgium's third goal. Nothing exemplifies this collapse more than how the U.S. managed the game's biggest momentum swing. Think about this. The U.S. equalizes on a deflected free kick. The Seattle crowd goes absolutely wild. You finally have a lifeline, right? You just have to settle down and ride that wave. But what actually happens? Literally 2 minutes later, a highly preventable defensive error hands Belgium a 2-goal cushion right back. It instantly silenced the stadium and killed any hope of a comeback.
As analyst Hercules Gomez pointed out, it was just one error after another that snowballed. The crucial point here is that these weren't just tactical missteps. They were catastrophic mental lapses. Take the goalkeeper, Matt Freese. He repeated the exact same careless passing error he made in the Gold Cup against Haiti. When you make those kinds of unforced errors against a team like Belgium, it buries you emotionally.
Section 5. The Pochettino Verdict, 20 months in.
Here are the bare facts. U.S. Soccer reset the market to make Pochettino the highest-paid coach in history, bringing him in specifically to elevate this team to new heights. Yet, the historical data brutally shows he achieved the exact same result, a round of 16 exit, as previous much cheaper managers. In fact, it doesn't even match the quarterfinal run the team had back in 2002. When we look at his entire 20-month tenure, it's defined by extreme inconsistency. There was constant tinkering with the lineup. We saw some pragmatic, albeit unspectacular, wins against Australia and Bosnia, sure. But we also watched him flirt with the Premier League and the Spain job. Ultimately, he completely failed to elevate the team to the elite status he was hired to achieve. The actual identity of this team remained a total question mark.
With reports suggesting a contract extension was already on the table before the tournament even ended, we really have to question the standard of success U.S. Soccer is actually demanding. Is a round of 16 exit, punctuated by a 4-1 blowout, truly enough to justify keeping the highest-paid coach around for another 4-year cycle?
Hercules Gomez perfectly captured the situation by arguing that you shouldn't just judge him off this one World Cup, but off the totality of the 20 months. Did the culture change? Did the team learn how to fight through adversity? Did they take that real next step forward? Based on this autopsy, the answers lean heavily towards no. Ultimately, what you should take away from this explainer is a pretty harsh reality check. The USMNT is simply not one of the best 8 teams left in the world right now. From the players on the pitch to the manager on the sidelines, they were severely humbled because they simply are not at that elite top-tier level yet, despite what all that outside hype suggested. Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder. Is this team suffering from an arrogance born of hype rather than actual achievement? And until the hardware finally starts matching the headlines, are we doomed to repeat this exact same autopsy in another 4 years? Thank you for walking through this breakdown with me, and keep questioning what it really takes to become the best in the world.